Well, my name is Mike. I own locksmithvideoschool.com, as you see there on your screen. I want to welcome you to this podcast on key duplicators. We're going to be looking in depth into the Wenxing, W-E-N-X-I-N-G, Wenxing Key Machine. It's rare in today. Most products have been out for years and years and years. For instance, the SpeedX duplicator's been out for, gosh, I had one for eons, man. And this machine here was sent to me a while back, and I want to tell you, it is one fine duplicator. We're going to be looking at the different adjustments on this machine. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of it. It's not an unboxing. I have actually physically used this machine for quite some time, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this machine. Any of our podcasts, I usually don't show things on our podcast that, somebody sends me something and goes, this is a great product. Yeah, well, how does it function in the field? Is it any good when you actually get out into the real world of locksmithing? So we're going to look at this, but before we do that, let's go into the office, and I'm going to go on my laptop, and I want you to look at lockpicks.com. We're going to look at the various machines that are out there that they sell, and I think you're going to find this machine to be pretty cool. So let's go in the office, and we'll take a look at their website. All right, as I said earlier when we were in the office, we're going to actually go to lockpicks.com, and I want you to look at their key machines. Let's go over to the duplicators. Now that's lockpicks.com. It's up at the top. You're going to see multiple duplicators, but the one I'm going to actually show you is this unit right here. This particular machine is an excellent machine, and we'll talk more about it when we get back down in the shop. But for right now, I want to back up here and I want to look at two other machines. One is your mini SpeedX machine. Look at the price on that thing. Now, I don't know what date you may be looking at this video at, what the date is where you are, but that's a darn good price, $373. Now, it may change. Retail on it is $385, but the one we're going to be looking at in the shop is this one, so I'm not going to focus too much in on that. But look over here at this machine, the Premier SpeedX Mini machine. Now, in our course in the code cutting and key duplication, I actually use a machine that's very close to this one. I had the Premium SpeedX duplicator, this one here, for almost 20 years. It is an excellent machine. It's not as good as the Ilco simply because the jaws, this part right here, if you can see my mouse moving around, this part right here, the jaws of the machine are better on the Ilco, but still a very, very formidable machine. I mean, it's a good machine. This machine over here, it's been my experience in the past that they chatter a little bit. Let me tell you a way that you can solve that. The newer machines may have a smaller belt, but the problem that they had on these machines back in the day, these two machines, this one, the HPC Mini SpeedX key, and the Premium SpeedX multi-key duplicator, those two machines have been out for, gosh, 45 years. They've been out a long, long, long time. And these machines, you got to keep in mind when you purchase one that you're only going to buy one. I mean, the Ilco duplicator that I use in our course on code cutting key duplication, that machine, which was purchased, I just got a really smoking deal on it and came by it, is the only reason I bought it. I had this Premium SpeedX prior to that. So the thing about it is, on these key machines, if you are going to purchase, now let's go back over to their key machines. I'm not going to focus in on code machines, but I am just going to touch on them in this podcast. You see a multiple array of machines. Let me tell you, the machine that you want is this one right here, the Blitz Code Milling Machine. This machine right here, $1,699. Dude, I have, look at $2,485. I have seen these anywhere from $2,500 and down. $1,699 at lockpicks.com. One heck of a deal. If you are going to you're really serious about the business and you go, Mike, I'm really going to get into this, you're going to buy this machine eventually. So let's go back to the key duplicator machines, and we'll talk about those. If you are going to buy that code machine eventually, I would purchase this machine right here for $359 way before I would purchase this machine. You say, Mike, why? When we get into the shop, when we go back into the shop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to code cut a key using this. When you turn this dial, like I said, I don't want to focus on this machine, but you'll see that code cutting a key on a free floating jaw machine is much better than on this. But you can do it on this. I mean, if I was looking at these two machines, which would I buy? I would buy this machine right here. But if you're going to buy the code machine, you'll never need to code cut using depth keys a key on your duplicator. So I would purchase this machine right here, the Wenxing, W-E-N-X-I-N-G, Wenxing Key Machine. I would purchase that machine, and you'll see why here in just a minute when we get back to the shop. But I would visit lockpicks.com up here, and I would definitely give them a shot on your tools and stuff. I don't make any money if you buy from these people or not. I just happen to know the owner on a business level, and super guys and super products, and definitely a super price. So let's go back into the shop, and we're going to look at the Wenxing Key Machine. Well, welcome back. Alrighty, here is your Wenxing, W-E-N-X-I-N-G, Wenxing Key Machine from lockpicks.com. I've had this machine for probably, I guess, a year or more, and I've used it extensively. The only change that I have made to this machine, if I can flip it around where you can see it, in a minute we're going to move the cameras around. I'm going to be looking straight down when we do some cutting on here, but I want to go around the machine and show you the features of the machine. This cover right here covers your brush on the side of this machine. I removed it. It's just personal preference. I like to be able to, when I brush a key, to be able to move the thing around and see it. And when this is on there, it's a little difficult to see your brush. So I removed this from the machine. Another nice feature about the machine is this handle that you can pick it up and carry it in. Let's talk for a minute about 12 volt versus 110. This machine comes in 110. You'd say, well, I don't have an inverter in my vehicle. Well, you need to get one. You need to have at least a 3,000 watt inverter in your van, which is what I have in ours. Now, 110 versus 12 volt. 12 volt is fine, but suppose you're on a large master key job and you want to take your machine inside. Well, I know they make drop-down units that I actually have one. That you can take a 12 volt machine and plug it into that and it'll work, but there's really not any need for it. On this particular machine, I would prefer a 110 machine anytime over a 12 volt machine. They just have more power. To me, it's just my own personal preference. But going around the machine, it's kind of a semi-automatic machine. This here, the pressure that you use here, you use like that, right? You have to actually apply the pressure, but to move the cutter, you move it back and forth. Now, we looked at the 1200 MC code machine. If you have that code machine, you're used to this. You become used to it as far as duplicating keys. But something really neat that I found out about this machine, that if you're the kind of guy that likes a free-floating jaws, in other words, where you just do it manually, on our code cutting key duplication course, I showed you why it's really best to have a free-floating jaws, because you might want to manipulate the key or cut hookers off. You know what that is if you've taken our course. You might want to remove hookers from a key or whatever the case might be. It's a little trickier to do with this. I've gotten pretty good at it to where I don't even need to do it. But if you wanted to, just flip this machine over and undo these two screws right here, and this unit, now you can move the jaws right and left, back and forth. It becomes a completely manual machine as opposed to a semi-automatic machine. Another nice thing about this machine is that, and you're going to see this in a second more in detail when we move the camera, but it has your tip gauge guides right on the side. You'd say, well, it has two. Yeah, it does, because you can flip these jaws around to hold different styles of keys. It has a top fence gauge that gauges the actual key. If the key doesn't have a lip on the bottom of it, some machines you always want to check this feature, and we might even mention this again once we move the cameras around where you're looking straight down on the machine. But always check to make sure that the distance to your lip of your key is the same as it is here, and that's what this top fence is for. So I know that this machine is spot on. I mean, you can look at it and tell that it's spot on, and I didn't even use this when I set these keys in here. I just butted them up against the jaws. One mistake you might make, which I have made before, is have this tip gauged gauge in the upward position where it's kind of like that, and you put the key in there and you jaw it down and you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And then that's why I always do that, to just check and make sure. You see that's off by at least 1/16 of an inch. So that key would not work if you duplicated it. But it would have if this tip gauge guide was down and not up. As you go around the machine, it has adjustments this way for your key guide. It will go that way, and it will also move this way. You'd say, Mike, when would I need to do that? Why is that such a big deal? Well, here's a scenario. Let's say you buy this machine. You're only going to buy one duplicator in your career. I mean, the duplicator, that Ilco duplicator that I bought 20 years ago, and the 20 years prior I had the SpeedX Premium machine. I could always buy cutters for it. HPC's been around for eons, so that's a good thing. But Wenxing Key Machines is a fairly new machine, so what happens if these folks go out of business? Well, that's the nice thing about having this guide right here, to where it can be adjusted in the horizontal position. You can adjust the horizontal movement to where if you put a different cutter on here, you can just actually do your spacing with this and make sure that your key guide, your key spacers on your jaws and your cutter is exactly the same. So that's a nice feature about this machine, going that way, this way. They even have the guide itself that can be adjusted this way. Well, whatever. The other thing that this machine has that I didn't see on any of the other ones is a key stop. You'd say, what is that? You're riding around in your van and all of a sudden your machine goes like that. Well, folks, it didn't hit the key guide and it didn't hit the cutter because of this stop right here that hits that. It won't let you. It won't let you put a key in the jaws, and this has happened on my Ilco. I've actually put a key in there, and I noticed that the way the jaw was grabbing the key, one of the cuts went down into the jaw, and I've actually accidentally cut the jaw itself with this, and that's steel, and that is hardened steel, and it will dull a cutter just like that if you do that. The only other thing that you need to be careful with this machine is this stop right here. If it is moved, let me get this around where you can see it. If this is moved up like that and it hits the cutter, you can see, I hope you can see on camera, it will do, let me move this cutter around, you're going to see what one of my sons did. Do you see that chip in the cutter right there? Bingo. Why? And I thought, who in the heck did that? Nobody admitted to it. Well, I wondered how it happened, because it has this stop. Well, it happened because this was sticking out and it chipped the cutter. So I need a new cutter. Actually, to be honest with you, this cutter is sharp as can be, and it's still cutting very fine. Another thing I like about this machine is the ratio between the speed of the cutter and the motor itself. The gear ratio, they got it spot on. This thing cuts keys like, man, you actually would not believe how smooth this machine actually is. I mean, it will flat cut a key. Let me go ahead and duplicate a key. This is the see-through cylinder that came with your course, to where you can see the pins move up and down. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but I am going to just take this key, put it into here, put this into this jaw right here. In a second, but like I say, we're going to move this around. But right now, take it like that, brush your key off, and it works like butter. That's how fast you can cut a key with this machine. Extremely fast. I really love this machine. So there. So now let's go ahead and we're going to move the camera, and we're going to go down onto the machine, and we're going to code cut a few keys on it. We're actually going to release the jaws and do it manually so you can see that being done. All right, very quickly here to show you how this works. I'm not actually going to code cut a key with this machine, but I want to show you how I make this machine actually a manual machine, and something to watch out for you. If I move this over here, now I'm sure that you can see this stop right here. You want to have it all the way over there and pull this up to where this cutter is about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of this, from the edge of where your tip gauge is. So it's probably just about right there. That's where you want this to remain when you loosen these 2 screws. It won't make any difference if you screw it up. It's the way it should be. So anyways, that way you can cut this. Now if you've taken our course, I've showed you already how to use depth keys to code cut a key on a machine that is fully non-automatic. It is just a complete manual machine. I prefer a complete manual machine to some degree, but since I've had this for almost a year or more, I really like this machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to code cut this key. This cylinder came with your course. I'm going to actually code cut the key to this, but first I need to know what the cuts are in here. Now I'm not going to dwell on that, but I already know that the cuts in this key, if we start from the back, let me talk about the key gauge for a second. You notice this says Schlage, but yet I have a quick set key in my hand. Flip it over, code cut some of these, buy a set of depth keys. You can either purchase the depth keys or you can make them yourself if you have a code machine, and flip your key gauge over. This is quick set, and this side I have Schlage. So I can take my quick set side, see I stamped the numbers in it. That brings me to another thing. The number size that you need, these numbers come in many different sizes, but a 1/8 inch stamp is the perfect size number to be able to per se stamp a number on this key. I wouldn't buy the larger numbers. But anyways, let's find out what the cuts in this key are. They are 5. I can tell the second key is a 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead right here and I'm going to write this down. Would be 5, 5. And your next cut, I'm pretty sure, is a 4. And then the next cut, I'm pretty sure, is a 6. And then the last cut on this key is a 2, which would be a real good example to show you on this machine how to use depth keys with this semi-automatic machine. Without any much to do, I'm going to go ahead and clamp these down in the jaws. Now I told you that I've already checked the distance on this, and the distance if I just take the key. The first cut you want to cut, as we talked about in the code cutting key duplication course, you want to start with your lowest number. So that's a 2. These quick set keys have stops on both ends of the bow, so I can slide it in there like that without any problem. I don't need to actually do this. I do just out of habit. For myself, you want the key flat and you want it straight. We cover all this in our course. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2s with this machine all the way across using this dial. If you are used to using a code machine, the HPC 1200 Blitz machine has this. Now, on our course, we cover that machine in depth. But it operates like this to move this back and forth. So if you're accustomed to this, this machine and the 1200 is a perfect fit for you. If you like to do it manually, undo the 2 screws. But let's go ahead. First thing we're going to do is we're going to cut 2s all the way across the key. Now, I'm helping this move with my hand, pushing it and pulling it. It just makes it run smoother. I'm going to start all the way in the back of the key. Now I'm focusing in on this part of the, I'm looking here, I'm not looking over there. So I'm going to cut 2s all the way across this key. See how easy this machine works? Awesome. Alright, so I'm going to cut 2s all the way across. My next cut, you go to the next lowest cut. We covered this in the code cutting key duplication course. I'm going to cut a 4. Alright, I'm going to cut 4s in the first 1, 2, 3 cuts, 4 cuts. My last cut is a 2, so I'm going to leave it alone. So I'm going to cut 4s all the way across. And I'm going to stop just before the 2 that I need on the end of this key. Like I say, this isn't about using depth keys, but like I say on these podcasts, I hope you pick up stuff that you haven't seen before. So now I'm going to take the 5, and I'm going to cut 5. You start at the lowest number and work your way up. So I'm going to start with the 5, and I'm going to cut 1, I'm going to cut 5, 5, I'm going to skip the 4, and I'm going to jump to the 6. And I'll show you how to do that. Just start down at the end because it's the first cut, so I'm going to cut 4. Alright, now I'm going to jump over. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I'm going to jump over to the center of the cut from the end, which is actually going to be the 6th cut. But I'm going to go ahead and cut it a 5 to get it started. It's kind of hard to do this because I can't really see what I'm doing. Because I'm looking at the key machine sideways, so you can see this. And so right there is your 4. Now I need a 6th cut right there on the end, and I can already see that there's hookers on this key. But I'm going to show you how to remove those in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to cut that 6. What I'm concerned with is the valley of the key. The hookers I can take care of. Cut the valley of the key. Now, as you look at this key, you can see the hookers that are on the key. If you stuck this key in the lock, number one, it wouldn't go all the way in because there's not a taper right there. That's not what this part of this podcast is about, but this is how I would remove this. There's 2 ways you could do it. You could do it manually, put the key back in the jaws, and take this and just manually do it. I can't do it on this video because of where the camera is. I can't look straight down on it. So I'm going to actually do it just by hand. Just take it and remove that hooker of that key. And touch that 2 up. Now if this code cut this key right, it should actually go in here and turn. And it works just like butter. So that's code cutting on this machine. As you can see, you can do it. Now let's talk about the tip gauges that are on this machine. You've got tip gauges on both sides. What are they for? They're to tip gauge a key. So what I've got here in my hand, this tool actually you can purchase from Brockage, or lockpicks.com has them. Brockage is their brand name. It's a see-through cylinder, pretty cool. You can actually see these are opposing wafers. That's not what this video is about, but I just wanted you to see that. It would pay to purchase one of these. You can pull this off, pull the plug out of it, and take a look and see how it actually physically works. But here's the key that fits it. So we want to copy this key. This key actually has shoulders on it. But what I'm going to do is going to use the shoulders. But if this key was made like this, see, there's no shoulders on this key, then you would put them in the jaws. That's when you would use this tip gauge. You would do it like that. You would use this tip gauge to tip gauge the key. Very common in Ford key blanks. Some of your older Fords, they're all tip gauged. So there you go, just like that. Actually, I think the new ones are too. If I look at my Ford key, it is actually exactly the same. You would have to tip gauge this particular key. I don't need 2 on this 4-in-1, but I just want to show you, I want to show you that feature of this machine. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually cut a double-sided key. So we put 1 in one jaws, 1 in the other jaw. Start the machine, start at the tip of the key. This is the way I like to start, is at the tip of the key. And keep in mind, that's not going to hit the jaws on this machine anyways because of this stop right there. So we're going to go ahead and start and just go on down the key. One thing I'll tell you about your key machines too, always make sure, man, that they are bolted down. You could actually secure this to the table of your van or have it in some type of enclosed area, because if you ever get in an accident, these become lethal. Alright, so now we're going to cut the other side. You notice I didn't flip this key over. The purpose of a double-sided key is that you can put this key, let me brush this key real quick. You can actually put this key in the lock, and there's our duplicate, works perfect. You can put it in either way and the key works. That's because they're cut the same on both sides of the key. Alright, so there you go. Your tip gauge, there's two different jaws on this machine, which is, most machines have that. That's why there's two tip gauges in your jaws, so you can pull this out. You've got an A side and you've got a B side of this jaw. You'd say, Mike, when would I need to use this when would I need the B jaw? Well, if you have a key for some reason or another, when you try to grab a hold of it with the A side up, the key doesn't sit right in there right, or like I said before, that one of the cuts goes down too far to where I have taken a piece of paper actually and stuck it in there to lift the key up a little bit to where it's sitting in there like that. But that's the purpose of this particular jaw, that I could actually grab this key just like that, as opposed to having it set down in the jaws like that. You see how it looks? Now if that 6 cut was a 7 or lower, which there isn't in, well, there is a 7, but I would cut the jaw, or well, this machine would stop you and not let you do that, not let you make that mistake. But that's the purpose of the B side of the jaws, so it'll grab different types of keys. I usually will use the B side when I'm cutting things like Y1s, and of course all this stuff is covered in our course. But anyways, that is your Wenxing Key Machine. It's an excellent machine. I encourage you to visit lockpicks.com, pick you up one of these, and you'll be very happy with it. And I appreciate you watching this video, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Be right back. Well, I hope you enjoyed this podcast on key duplicators. I know I did. It's almost like playing a new song or something. To me it is. I was a guitar player prior to becoming a locksmith. And you know, a little bit about myself. I started when I was in my early 20s, and I'm 63, I believe now. You know, you kind of forget as you start getting older. I'm 63 now, but I love the field of locksmithing, mainly because it's always something new. It's not boring. Now, if you're interested in becoming a locksmith, if you are on our website right now watching this, or go to our website at locksmithvideoschool.com, you can watch some of these podcasts that we have. But in the top left corner of our home page, if you click that link that says Course with Tools, that includes the basic, the advanced, our entire program, all the courses. It has descriptions of each one of the courses, the categories, the tools that come with our course, and we can get you into the business. You know, I remember as a young man when I was playing clubs and didn't really know what I wanted to do as far as a career was concerned. I was playing clubs. I started going to church, kind of wanted a change in my life. I didn't want to be in bars, you know, 7 nights a week, or traveling on the road living out of a suitcase. So I started going to church, and I met a guy in church, and I think this is on one of my demos, so I'm not going to go into detail about it, but I needed something that would keep my interest. In other words, I couldn't sit in a cubicle 70 hours a week if I had to work that much just to make ends meet. I wanted change. I wanted to get out. I didn't want to be stuck in an office somewhere. So locksmithing to me afforded me all of those different attributes. In other words, the technical part, the using my hands, using my brain to be able, I mean, we cover marketing, we cover everything in our course that it takes, how to build your van out, what you need, and now we've shared with you duplicators, which we have a section on duplicating, code cutting, key duplication in our course where we cover that HPC 1200 Blitz code machine that you saw early in this earlier podcast. But anyways, I want to thank you for watching this podcast. If you like it, just like down at the bottom, and we will see you on the next podcast.